Most new client onboarding is actually just project focused when it should be more about the relationship. Kickoffs handle the projects. Onboarding should handle the person. Let's get into it.
Equipping creative businesses to unleash their best work.
Welcome back to the Chief Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Pead, founder and owner of Chief Creative Partners, where you create and we operate. And this podcast is all about helping creative businesses unleash their best work through operational efficiency. And if you've been following along, we've been basically writing my next book in real time on this podcast. And today, just like all the other episodes, is going to me just kind of like talking it out. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the things that I'm seeing. Here are the things that we've been inputting with my clients at Chief Creative Partners. And so we talked before about the personal survival, right? How you might be drowning alone in some sections of the book there. The midsection of the book where we're at right now is, hey, you have clients, but the delivery is chaotic. And then the last section of the book is where we're going to talk about how when you have a team and how to actually scale the creative business, because you can't grow without systems in place. So in the last episode, we talked about project kickoffs. And on this episode, we're going to talk about client onboarding. And that may sound similar to you, but I want to start at the top of this episode by distinguishing the two of those, right? Project kickoffs, right? That's the moment that you and the client kind of align on a very specific project, right? You talk about the scope, the timeline, the deliverables, the creative direction. It's very project centered, right? It's project specific. And that happens after the contract is signed. They've already been kind of onboarded. We're into the flow of things. This, however, client onboarding, this is the process of bringing the client into how you work, right? Your tools, your communication norms, your expectation, and it defines the relationship that you're going to have with them as you grow together. It's relationship specific. And it ideally happens immediately before the first kickoff ever even happens. This client onboarding is a part of it. Now, I'll say client onboarding for many of us, including myself and our clients, can look like anywhere between a week and 90 days. I like to look at the full scope of 90 days because that gives us time to get to know each other, put something together, start on a project, maybe see something through. So we always talk about the client journey and left to right, and we're usually looking at that first 90 days. But at the very, very top, before we get to a project kickoff, is client onboarding, and that's what today's episode is going to be all about. Before we get into that, if you are a creative business owner and you need help controlling the chaos of your creative business and things are flying all over the place and things are going out before it's actually been reviewed and you're starting to see the excellence dip a little bit, I think you might need some processes and systems in place, and that's what we at Chief Creative Partners are here to do. Go to chiefcreativepartners.com and grab a time on my calendar for us to talk about how we can help you unleash your best work yet. All right, now let's get into today's episode. So, a simple way to think about it is the kickoff answers, what are we building and how? The onboarding answers, how do we work together? So in order to do that, just like operationally speaking, we're always working towards this operational playbook for your business, right? So that we can reference it. Anyone on our team can reference the one single document where everything is of this is how we do this. This is our standard for how we do project briefings. This is our standard on how we deliver. This is our standard on revisions. This is all of our standards and how we actually do the things that we do day in and day out. They all live in your operational playbook. But in your file structure, right, you have a client folder, and inside the client folder, you have different projects for the client. But right at the top, I'd love to have a document right at the top of every single client folder that you have where you have a document called a client intelligence file, right? This is going to be the difference between knowing what you're building for a client and actually knowing your client, right? Most creative businesses, they do the former, right? What do you want? What can we do for what? How can we get the thing that you want? But we completely skip the latter of understanding who they are as a business, as a person. What view of excellence is subjective to them? What is it? What does a great job look like to you? Might look different to them, and how are we going to blossom this relationship into our favorite word in a creative business, and that is some type of long-term retainer relationship. So we're going to talk about what should be included in client onboarding, but I want you to remember that client intelligence file, because all the information that we're gathering during this onboarding should be slowly building and continuously building that CIF, or the client intelligence file. So the first thing we want to know, right, is who are they? Who are they, right? How do they communicate? What are their general preferences? How do they like to work? Are they late night? Are they early? We talked a little bit about this if we're doing one-off projects and the project kickoff, but this is more of an expanded view of how are we going to ebb and flow as we create this thing together that you have hired us to create. So who they are. You're also going to ask how they feel valued. Now, this is what I'm kind of honestly wrestling with these days. I'm wrestling with this idea of how our clients feel valued. About a year or so ago, it was suggested that I read the book Giftology. It's a short 2-hour listen if you're listening to an audiobook. And Giftology is basically, it's a practice of active listening to your clients and to your business partners and associates, so that you can listen for ways that you can surprise and delight them with a gift that is meaningful to them, not necessarily meaningful to you, right? He talks in this book about, hey, many times we like to send, a tumbler or something like that with our business logo to our client. Wouldn't it be better if we sent it to them with their logo on it, right? So that we're creative people. We have access to their logos. How about we do that instead? How about we give them a gift that's more personal and directed to them, because we are practicing that active listening. And I was having this conversation with one of my clients recently on a trip about how gifts, right? When we think about giving someone a gift, I think about the book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages. And gift giving is only one of the 5 love languages. Now, I love gifts. If you give me a gift, I will feel appreciated and valued. But that's not true for everybody. And so I started to dig in and I started to have conversations. And even this week, as I'm recording this podcast, I started sending just a simple survey to my clients to go, hey, if it's not gift giving that makes you feel appreciated, what is it? And so I think there's this appreciation language that has not been tapped into yet, right? There is a book out there of the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace that Gary Chapman co-wrote as well. Fantastic read. I think that's a great read for culture, taking the 5 languages to inside the organization. But what I'm talking about here is B2B businesses, which most creative businesses are, B2B businesses that have long-standing partnerships with other businesses that they serve as their clients. How do we let them know? How do we have them feel that we're intentionally appreciating them along the way and we see them for the person that they are? We are valuing the people that we work with instead of just the projects that we work on. And so I went back to the 5 love languages and I started to ask myself, okay, well, what are the other 5 love languages, right? One of them is words of affirmation. Well, that totally makes sense to me in a business context, right? They feel valued when you recognize them verbally, even more so if it's in front of a crowd, right? You compliment their vision, you celebrate their wins verbally, and you tell them what they're doing is great. That is a words of affirmation client appreciation. So no different in the 5 love languages as it is in this B2B context. The second one in the 5 love languages is acts of service, right? And I think this is totally applicable in the B2B context of client appreciation as well. They feel valued when you go above and beyond the scope, right? We call it sometimes surprise and delight, without being asked, right? You notice a problem and you went ahead and fixed it without being asked. You bring solutions that they didn't even request. Those are acts of service. And then, of course, there's gift giving. This is what giftology is kind of centered around, right? They feel valued when you remember them in a very specific, intentional way with a thoughtful, specific, well-timed gift. Not swag, but gifts that prove that you're paying attention. One of my favorite ones we ever got to do with one of my clients is we were on a kickoff call with one of our clients, and he was running a little bit late, and he kind of came in disheveled. He's like, I'm so sorry. My 8-year-old daughter just started playing soccer. It's her first season, and we just got home from her first practice, and so it was a little bit chaotic, and then we got right into it. Well, I immediately wrote down here in my remarkable 8-year-old daughter just started playing soccer. And after the call was over, I called my client and I said, hey, did you hear what I heard? And he goes, yeah, 8-year-old daughter just started playing soccer. I said, great, what should we do? He goes, I think we should send her a pink soccer ball. So we did, which was amazing. It showed up to the client's house, said, hey, this is for your daughter who is starting her soccer journey. We value you as a client. That is thoughtful, well-timed, specific gift giving, and that's what giftology is all about. So gift giving in the 5 love languages definitely translates into the 5 languages of client appreciation. Then in the 5 love languages, there's quality time, and this also directly translates into the 5 languages of client appreciation. Quality time is they feel valued when you are present with them, not just working for them, right? A longer call, the occasional lunch, the out to the ball game together, the personal visits, the check-in that isn't about a project at all. Those things mean the most to those clients. So quality time is an actual client appreciation language. But then in the 5 love languages, the 5th one is physical touch, right? And that's weird, especially when we're talking in the context of client appreciation. There's not really an instance where physical touch would be really appropriate from one business to another business and that type of working relationship and partnership. And so I got to dig in a little bit deeper. It's like, what is missing here out of the 4 love languages so far and the 4 languages of client appreciation? What is missing so far? And the thing that kept coming back to me over and over again as I was having these conversations with my clients and other business owners is this word advocacy, right? Then what this means is, right, they feel valued when you champion them and their business beyond your engagement, right? And this often looks like a referral, right? You refer business to them. Hey, I have a client who is amazing at XYZ, and I have a friend who needs XYZ. I'm going to connect the two of them together, and I'm going to tell my friend, before you look anywhere else, look over here because these guys are the best. That's an advocacy, right? They feel, and that's going to let that client of yours feel valued because you championed them beyond the engagement, right? You referred that business to them, you promoted their work, and you treated their success as your own. It felt good when they won the business of your friend, even though transactionally speaking, you're not even in it. You just connected the two together, and that client feels valued. That is the appreciation language of advocacy. And so I don't know if this is where it's all going to land. This is just where I'm sitting at right now. And so when you're onboarding, I want you to remember these appreciation languages, because when you understand how they feel valued, then you can strengthen the bonds of that client relationship so much more. And how to use these is our next part. When to show up. We call them milestones. So in our Asana, for every client that we have a handful of milestones. We want to know how long have they been working with us? Like, what's their initial contract date? Obviously, renewal windows of that. How long have they been working at their company? Their birthday, their anniversary, anything that's important in their world. We're going to, as we learn that information, we're going to add it to our milestones, and we're going to note the date on the task, and we're going to date the date of that task about a month before that thing comes up. Because here's what happens, right? Is you sit down in your calendar, and you get into work, you sit down, you look at your calendar, and you're like, oh, it's Bill's birthday over at this business. They're a great partner of ours. we should do something to celebrate his birthday. I don't know what we're going to do. But if you had a system in place that reminded you a month before that date that Bill's birthday was coming, then you could begin to do something special. Maybe it's a gift, right? The thoughtful, intentional gift. Maybe it's some advocacy. Maybe it's some quality time. Maybe it's an act of service. Maybe it's words of affirmation. And maybe you do these things beyond the milestone dates as well. But knowing these milestones and speaking their appreciation language on their milestones is going to mean more than anything else that you'll do in your engagement with them. And the last part of this CIF, this client intelligence file, is how are we going to work together? What tools do they use? What tools do we use? What access do we need? Do we have passwords for any platforms in which we need access to work with them? What are the workflow norms? How does it go? Does it go project briefing, round 1, internal revisions, round 2, client revisions? Do they get more than one revision? Who gets the revisions usually beyond just a project? But client intelligence files will have all that information there. Names, contacts, titles of the contacts, phone numbers if we need to call them, because what we want in this client intelligent file is as our business scales, that file builds because our relationship with our clients build, and we can serve our clients better because we have all that information located in one central spot for our whole team. But as our team grows, because our business grows, then they can reference this client intelligence file and not have to waste a lot of time getting things wrong. But from the jump, they can get it right. They can reference all the data that we have in that file. It's clearly bookmarked out for them to use at the appropriate and proper times. This is what effective client onboarding looks like. It's about the client. It's not about the project. That's why there's a chapter in here and systems in this book for project kickoffs about the project. And then there's a chapter about client onboarding because it's about the client. And if you have one without the other, you will fail in your relationship with your clients. So having systems around each of these is of the highest importance. So a couple things that you can do immediately. Go ahead and create a standard onboarding or client intake form to send to every new client. And if you need to go back and send it to existing ones, send it to them too. One of the things that we ask in ours is, hey, pretend you're a rock star for a second. What would be in your green room? That tells us favorite snacks, favorite aesthetics, favorite lighting and comfort styles, all these different things. That one question gives us so much information. You're going to ask those dates. You're going to probably even start to ask the advocacy questions that I'm starting to ask with my clients as well, to find out how do they, at the end of the day, how do they most feel valued and appreciated? You're going to ask all that stuff in your onboarding intake form. So create that, send it to every existing client, and have it ready for every new client. Second thing to do, create a client intelligence file for each client and keep it in your client folder. Now, that might seem really overwhelming. Maybe you have 6 to 8 clients or even more. Take one a month, take one a week, whatever it takes, and mind dump everything that you know about that client into the client intelligence file. And you'll begin to get yourself a rhythm of what's most important to you and your business, and then match that style across the board for every CIF that you have in your drive. But remember, that CIF, that client intelligence file for each client, it's an ongoing working document. So every time you learn something new about how they operate or what their likes or dislikes are or what their preferences are, you're going to add it to the CIF. Remember, observation over time plus those good onboarding survey questions is going to equal great client relationships, which is going to allow your project kickoffs when you have them to flow even smoother because you'll have a better understanding of each other and where they're coming from besides just the project that you need to deliver on. So if you'd like help with any of that in your creative business, reach out to us at chiefcreativepartners.com. You create, we operate. Let's actually build something that works together. Next episode, we're going to be back with another chapter from this book. I cannot wait to share it with you on the Chief Creative Podcast. Have a great week.